Hey guys, it's Steve here. I've got a brand new gadget called a gimbal. So I've put my phone in it, it keeps it nice and steady and it follows me around. So I'm going to walk around the house and show you, kind of give you a tour, and then we'll get into the top 10 fragrances for life video. I'm really excited. Best thing about this is I've played with the settings and it tracks me basically. So it always follows me and stays steady. So if I go down, this will follow me just like this. Oh, for fuck's sakes. Word to your mother, my name's Steve, this channel is FRAGS Twitches. Thank you for tuning in. Today we are going to revisit my top 10 fragrances for life. Now, the irony of revisiting a top 10 fragrances for life video is not lost on me. Okay, I get it. It's a sham of a mockery of a sham, all rolled into the sham of a mockery. But I think a top 10 fragrances for life, essentially what we're saying there is these are the 10 fragrances that I love the most, of all the fragrances I've smelled up to that point. And a year and a half later, I think I released the video on the 13th of May 2019. I've smelled quite a lot of fragrances since then, so I just wanted to see if I would tweak that list at all. And you know what, I would. So before we get into this, I just want to emphasize that I still very much love the 10 fragrances that I mentioned in that video, and if I had to stay true to that and keep them and wear them for the rest of my life, I wouldn't have a problem, okay? All I'm saying is there's a few fragrances that I've just smelt that might just pip some of those others and maybe just replace them in the list, so I just want to talk about those. The majority of the fragrances are unchanged. So what I'm going to do is quickly whiz through them because you've all heard them before, you all know what's in the list, you're all waiting to see the chronic, etc. So let's just get through those and then we'll start talking about the little tweaks and the changes. So here it is, it's Byron Parfums The Chronic. You all know it's going to be in the list, and this remains unchanged as it is still one of my favourite fragrances of all time. If you don't know what it is, it's basically sandalwood and musk, and I think there's some cinnamon in there as well, but basically gives it this kind of a bubblegummy sort of vibe, but in a very smooth, quite sophisticated kind of way. One of the things I love about this fragrance is on my skin it performs like an absolute beast. I get really long longevity and I get really good projection as well. I could comfortably get away with 2, maybe 3 sprays max, and that will last me all day, and it's very noticeable. So yeah, Byron Parfums The Chronic is still one of my all-time faves. Another fragrance that remains unchanged from the list is Tom Ford's Noir Extreme. Again, I've banged on about this loads on this channel, so I won't dwell on it, but this has got a very subtle mandarin note that I really quite enjoy. It's one of my favourite accords. The Colfie basically gives it this kind of creamy, sweet vibe, and I also get this phantom tobacco note, which is, but there's no tobacco in this fragrance, but you're left with this very, to me, alluring, sexy, but still quite comforting kind of a fragrance that I just thoroughly enjoy. Yeah, Tom Ford's Noir Extreme. Another fragrance that I have banged on about in all of the formats that I have, Instagram, the podcast, this channel, is Wanted by Night by Azzaro. Love this fragrance. I just find it just super kind of sexy and manly. I just feel really confident wearing this. It's kind of got this sweet, fruity leather tobacco thing going on. I actually wore this at my Christmas party a couple of years ago. I just felt really good wearing it. Love Wanted by Night from Azzaro. For the next fragrance, I have been driving, captaining, steering, and just selling tickets for the hype train. The fragrance I'm talking about is Mercedes-Benz Cologne. Now, I did think this was discontinued. There was a lot of talk about that. It was really hard to come by. Prices were shooting up, but it's recently started appearing in TK Maxx, so a few people kind of managed to grab some bottles. I'd like to think that I was the one that actually caused this to sell out everywhere, but we all know in reality, I'm nowhere near that fucking influential. But I love this fragrance. It was a blind buy for me. I fell in love with that mandarin note. It's absolutely gorgeous. If you're not sure what it is, it's basically a clone of Dior Homme Cologne, but it's much better value for money and it actually performs a little bit better. If you can get hold of it, check out your local TK Maxx store. It is an absolute banger. It is Mercedes-Benz Cologne. If I tell you the next fragrance has a lovely mandarin note, you're all gonna know what it is. It is of course Clinique's Happy for Men. Again, one of my all-time favorites. I remember I first smelt this in an airport, just kind of passing through, killing time. And I instantly fell in love with it and ordered it when I got home because it was stupidly expensive in the airport and it was a lot cheaper online. It's just a gorgeous, gorgeous note that does actually make me feel happy. I just find this just really comforting. My wife actually said I smelled divine when I bought this. I just love this fragrance. Performance isn't great, so you do need to top up, but yeah, I just think it's an absolutely gorgeous summer fresh fragrance. Clinique's Happy for Men. The next fragrance is the last one that remains unchanged from the list that I released in May 2019. It is Bvlgari's Man Black Cologne. Now, I blind bought this fragrance on the back of a Joya Min review. He praised it and loved it, and I blind bought it and I loved it too. If you're not sure what it is, it's basically like a springtime version of Bvlgari's Man in Black. So it's still got that boozy rum note, but it's a lot more floral. It's very prominent in tuberose, which can be quite a divisive note or accord. So I wouldn't recommend that you blind buy this fragrance because it doesn't get much love, but I love it. I think it actually smells really quite unique. It's kind of fresh yet sexy and individual. I really enjoy this fragrance and I've actually picked up a compliment or two from the wife wearing this. Absolutely love it. It's just one of those fragrances that totally resonates with me. But as I say, I wouldn't recommend a blind buy because it does seem to be a bit divisive and doesn't get much love, which is a shame, but you know what? It gets enough love from me. Bvlgari's Man Black Cologne. Okay, the last few fragrances on this list are changes from the video that I released in May 2019. They're not big changes, I grant you. It's like the difference between your left nut and your right nut. Actually, we're not sexist on this channel, I want to be all inclusive. So it's the difference between your left tit and your right tit. Actually, there's some women's tits are quite different, aren't they? My wife's are. Basically, it's not changed much. Okay, I'm just fine tuning some of these fragrances, and this is one of them. So on that last list, I included Armani Diamonds Black Carrot, which I said is a kind of like more mature and sophisticated version of the original. And you know what, I stand by that and it still smells great. But since filming that video, I picked up a bottle of the original Armani Diamonds, which is my gateway fragrance, and it's the one that I used to kind of wear when I was dating my wife, I wore it on our wedding day, etc. And you know what, it is more juvenile than the Black Carrot version, but it is just more enjoyable, it's easier to wear, it's a bit more mass appealing, and I do just prefer it. I think it just kind of, it's a bit more reminiscence, it's just a really fun, enjoyable fragrance to wear. It's a bit juvenile, it's a bit kind of, it's very designery, but it's a fragrance I love, so I'm tweaking it and I'm going back to the original. I'm gonna have Armani Diamonds, the original EDT. Okay, next up is another little tweak, which is something that my wife keeps telling me not to do. In my last list, I included Bleu de Chanel, the EDP version, which I love, and I still say it's the best value version of the Bleu de Chanel line, but I've got to be true, I've got to recognise that ultimately the Parfum version does just, to me, smell a little bit better. I still own both versions, and if you were asking me which version to get, I'd probably still tell you to get the EDP because it's cheaper, it performs better, and it's probably more versatile. But the Parfum version just smells just a little bit better. It's a bit richer, a bit sexier, and probably just a little bit more unique, but that's not really saying much. It's Bleu de Chanel at the end of the day. Performance isn't quite as good. I do have to go a lot heavier on this to get the same sort of performance and longevity, but it just smells a little bit better. So I'm tweaking it. I'm switching out the EDP version and I'm replacing it with the Parfum version of Bleu de Chanel. If you've been watching my channel throughout 2020, you've been waiting for this fragrance to pop up in this video, and here it is. It's Parfum de Marly's Layton. I fell in love with this fragrance. I first smelt the DNA when I smelt Alexandria Fragrances Royal Equestrian, fell in love with that, rinsed the hell out of it, went through that bottle. I felt I kind of owed it to myself and to PDM to get the original, and I don't regret it at all. I was a little bit worried that it wouldn't perform as well as the Alexandria version. Some people say it doesn't, but for me it does. I get really good projection, really good longevity. I just love this fragrance. This just, makes me feel so good. It's actually my scent of the day, so I might just have a cheeky little spray. If I'm being truly honest, if I had to pick one fragrance out of all of these, this would be it. This is my fragrance. It just makes me feel so good. It smells so good and so sexy, yet it's still really versatile. So if I could only wear one fragrance for the rest of my life, this would be it. Parfum de Marly, Layton. If I'm honest, I ummed and ahed over what the last fragrance was going to be in this top 10 fragrances for life video, because it came down to about 3 or 4 fragrances, and I love all of them, and I couldn't split them. I kept wearing them each day. I took it really seriously, and I kept comparing them, and I think I was happy with my decision, and then I realised, oh, I just going for that one because it's a bit warmer this day or whatever, and it works a bit better on this particular day. So it was really hard, but ultimately I'm pleased with my decision. I've gone for Viktor and Rolf Spicebomb. This is the original EDT. I love this fragrance. When I first smelt it, I really liked it, but since owning it, it's just grown on me more and more, and I find I just keep reaching for it. For me, a lot of people describe this as a sexy date night clubbing type fragrance, and it would work well in that situation, but for me, I just use it as a sort of colder weather fragrance. It'd work well in winter, but I think it works really well in autumn. But it's just a really comforting kind of cold weather fragrance. The sweet bubblegum vibe that you get off from this is just, I find it really alluring and kind of comforting, and it's one that I want to just keep smelling whenever I'm wearing it. If you're not familiar with this fragrance, it's got kind of tobacco in it and leather, but there's cinnamon, and there's obviously spices in there as well. And in the ultimate effect, as I say, is this kind of sweet bubblegummy kind of vibe. It's just a really comforting fragrance that I just enjoy wearing. It's like getting a cuddle, and I just love it. It's Spicebomb from Viktor and Rolf. If you've not tried any of the line, try all of them, find out your favourites. Viktor and Rolf Spicebomb Extreme is also really good. I think that works really well in cold weather. But for me, I've done a video on this and I can link that down below. The best one from the range for me is still the original. That's Viktor and Rolf's Spicebomb. Thank you for watching. If you're a regular viewer of this channel, you probably didn't get much out of this because you knew what the fragrances were going to be. I'm sorry. But if you did get anything out of this, if you did enjoy it, do give it a like, and I'd really appreciate it. And if you haven't already done so, do hit that subscribe button. And while I've got your attention, please head over to my new YouTube channel called For Shits And Giggles. It's basically me just dicking around, having a bit of fun. I used to do stand-up comedy. I've always been into comedy. That's why I kind of like to make the funny intros, etc., and just kind of mess about. So I've made a dedicated channel for that sort of stuff. So please go over there and give it a subscription. I would really appreciate it. It's a bit weird kind of starting to grow a brand new channel again now, actually. So your help in doing so would be really appreciated. The link is down below, and I'll also put a card on the screen. Thank you for watching again. I will see you for the next video. Take care, much love.